My kids were little. The Halley's Comet made its round again, 1986, so maybe some of you saw that. So we went up near Valley Center and took this picture. Not great pictures with my camera, but this is it right there. You can see the tail a little bit going on there. I was talking to, I forget who it was before our class here, but I think talking to Gary, I was saying it made a great appearance in 1910, and it's going to make a great appearance in 76 years after 1986, so you can play with the math. But we got stuck with the worst in a long, long time. It wasn't really that bright. It's going to be brighter the next time around. So if you stay healthy and live to about 130, 140, you can see it again. That's what it looks like on the inside. That's the core of Halley's Comet. It's blowing off, it's like a dirty snowball, somebody described it. So as it gets close to the sun, it heats it up, and it starts streaming out all this stuff, and that's what you see as far as the tail of it goes. But they actually took a spacecraft and went up close, got past all the debris, and saw the actual nucleus of this thing. So every time it goes around, it's going to lose a little bit of itself. But it's done this for hundreds of years. So we'll have it with us for a long, long time. I have a telescope at home, so just for the heck of it, I took a smartphone and stuck it up there and treated it as a camera and just kind of hoped that I could get it, with the focus just right. I thought it turned out pretty well. So this is the moon, and that's Copernicus. That's one of the larger craters on the moon. It's really easy to see with any kind of telescope because it's got this, huge walls to it. That's about 60 miles across, just to give you an idea of the size of this. And then, I know you can't see it very well, but as it goes off up here, you can see what looks like little dark spots. That's part of a mountain range. And this is where Apollo 15 landed, right up here, Mount Hadley. And the only reason I bring that up was kind of a cool thing. Sharon and I went over to a church in, was it Vista? I think it was Vista. And they had Jim Irwin, one of the astronauts who'd become a Christian. In fact, here's the book that he wrote. It's called To Rule the Night. I don't know if it's still available. It's a good book. It's his spiritual journey as well as his journey to the moon. So he spoke that night, and it was great hearing him. And then afterwards he said he's going to be over in this room, and if you want to come up and say hi, he'd love to say hi to you. And so the church was crowded, and we said, well, why don't we just get out? It'd be fun, but we don't know the church very well, so we'll just leave. And we headed off a corridor that we thought was heading us outside, and we walked down. And there's a room there, and I look over, and it's Jim Irwin sitting there, waiting for everybody to line up. so he signed some stuff for us, and it was a real kick. So, neat guy. So I'm just curious, as far as you and astronomy goes, you ever been to the desert and had a chance to look up and see the beauty? Yeah, isn't that something? What we're doing is we're looking through the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Right? So if you could get above it, it would look sort of a pinwheel fashion, but we're looking through it. That's what we're seeing here. It's too bad. It used to be here. It was fairly okay as far as light goes, but they built the Palomar Observatory back in the 40s, and they thought that was to last forever. It's so dark here. Well, now they're struggling with the light from it. You ever look through a telescope?
Yes.
Yeah? Big one, small one? What'd you have?
What's big, what's small?
Well, like 8-inch. I have an 8-inch one at
The size
home.
of a water heater?
You got one that size?
No, but a friend did
Oh.
in Death Valley.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
And it was amazing to look at Saturn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Saturn's always a favorite.
It was.
Couple of the rest of you had telescopes? Had a chance to look?
I don't remember how big it was, but probably about 4 or 5 feet long up in Fresno.
Yeah.
And he had it in an observatory, and he had it set up so it ran with the Earth's surface. So it was, you get a little something that stayed there.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. You can do some good astrophotography when you can follow the movement. You ever seen a solar or a lunar eclipse?
Yep.
Lunar eclipses are kind of a dime a dozen. I mean, no offense, I've seen them and they're fairly dull. The moon will turn a little red. The cool ones are the solar eclipses. Anybody seen the solar eclipse?
Yeah.
Really? Wow. Okay, well, I don't know if it has struck you this way, but there was a really interesting essay that a woman wrote, and I want to share part of it with you. She said, I've said that I heard screams, I've since read that screaming with hysteria is a common reaction to total eclipses. Anybody find that noise going on? Okay. People on all the hillsides, including, I think, myself, like she wasn't sure, screamed when the black body of the moon detached from the sky and rolled over the sun. But something else was happening at the same instant, and that's what made us scream. The second before the sun went out, we saw a wall of dark shadow come speeding at us. We no sooner saw it than it was upon us like thunder. It roared up the valley, it slammed our hill and knocked us out. It was a monstrous swift shadow cone of the moon. I mean, you don't think about that, you know, it's just, oh, how nice, the shadow's coming across. Well, if it's coming across the sun, it's going to come across in the land as well. It says language can give you no sense of the speed. It was 1,800 miles an hour. It says it was 195 miles wide. No end was in sight. You saw only the edge. So I'll stop at that point as far, but I mean, can you imagine, I haven't been there, so I was just imagining just to see a wall of darkness coming much faster than a cloud that goes across the sky, and you go, oh, isn't that nice? This wasn't nice. It scared the heck out of these people to see that thing coming at them. So it's pretty impressive. Annie Dillard is her name. You can look up the article online if you want. It's just called Total Eclipse. Have you seen a planetarium show?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to do it? Where'd you see it?
Palomar.
Oh, good, because I was going to advertise
Yes.
Palomar in a minute.
Yes.
Was it worth it?
Yes.
Okay,
Great.
good. She's my shill for the night. She's a,
I've seen one in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
I remember when I was a kid.
yeah. How about down in San Diego,
Yes.
the Fleet Space Theater? Yeah, that's pretty spectacular.
That's good.
Yeah, they have the IMAX theater as well, but yeah, to see the planetarium show is really amazing. So here's Palomar's, if you haven't heard of that one. It's, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years old, so it's pretty recent. They've got some really good stuff there that makes it work well. They have one show called The Sky Tonight, and that just simply tells you, you know, what's out there to go see if you want to go see it. Venus is available right now, Jupiter later. And so that's fine, but then they also have another show, it's called a full dome show, which is the entire dome, and they'll take you on a trip out into space or, you know, look at black holes or whatever it is. And these are shows produced other places, and then Palomar buys them. So they're really done very, very well. And then they usually have telescope viewing afterwards. Did you do that at all? Did you stick around? Okay. Depends on the weather, of course, but they'll set up a telescope and let you take a look at something out there. Josie?
Yeah, when I was going to Palomar a long time ago, when Dick Marlin was my Bible and literature teacher, but every month they would change they would do a different show. And at Christmas, it was really cool. They did a Christmas, like the Bethlehem Star thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't know if they still do those things or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to take a look and see what they're doing for Christmas time.
And SDSU has a telescope out by Alpine. And
Yeah.
They open
True.
it up.
Right, yeah. You can actually go up, at least years ago, you could go up and at least look at Palomar. The size of those things are really immense, aren't they? I mean, you see a picture of them and then to see that dome and all, pretty spectacular. They're still getting good science out of Palomar. So you saw my title. Well, it ties in very well, doesn't it, with this verse from Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, night after night they display knowledge. So we should get something out of just looking at the space that's out there. But some things have been happening lately that cause this to be kind of questionable. So we'll get to that in just a second. I wanted to share with you just some general pictures that just knocked me out. I think they're really neat. This is something called the Crab Nebula. So in the very center of this thing was a star at one time that blew up in 1054 AD, and the Mayans and the Japanese and the Arabs all noted that. It was so bright you could see it in the daytime, the star. So it was called a supernova, you know, boom. Nova means new, and it's like, wow, what is that? Well, it was a star, and it's some stars will explode like that, others won't. Our sun won't, it's not big enough. But this star was a big star. So what you're seeing is the gas, all the shells, the stuff that got blown off out into space, and it's continuing to move out fast, really, really fast. And in the center is a little neutron star. It's called a neutron star. They've taken all matter, because of that, the size of that star, it's all collapsed at one time, and the outward expansion wouldn't take care of the inward gravity pull, so the thing pulled itself all together, smashed the atoms down until you just have nothing but neutrons left. You don't have the electrons orbiting and all that kind of stuff. So it's just crushed it down to something like 17 miles across. It's a star 17 miles across, and it's spinning 30 times a second, and it sends out a beam that we can pick up during those 30, so it's like pulsing, right? But 30 times a second. I mean, that would have been something to watch in slow motion, wouldn't it? As that thing makes Mount St. Helens look like nothing, but pretty spectacular, beautiful. By the way, if you do get to a telescope, I hope you do, these will be all disappointing because they won't look like this. This is something done on a professional level. The colors just aren't there when you're looking at things. A couple exceptions, but for objects like this. This is in Taurus, the bull, right? So it's in that constellation. Is that one of the most beautiful pictures? That's just spectacular. Everybody knows Saturn, right? If they don't know anything else about astronomy, they know about Saturn. The rings go out like 75,000 miles from the edge. They're only 60 feet thick. So when Saturn, it's tilted a little bit, and when it comes around for us to view, there are times where we're seeing the rings edge on and they disappear. And then as it swings around the orbit, you can see so this is a really good view of it here. And it's made up of just ice chunks, and the largest maybe 30 feet, others are just, hand size. There's just thousands and thousands of them. They got little tiny moons that are going around to kind of shepherd that ice to keep it in that formation that's there. It's pretty amazing. Saturn's the only planet, if you had a lake big enough, you could plop it in there and it'd float. Right? It's not that solid. Right? It's just all gases that are hanging together. Oh, I love that picture. You seen this one? This came from the Hubble Space Telescope. It's called the Pillars of Creation. That's what somebody named it. Because those areas are forming into stars. They're going to be stars someday. They're starting to collapse, condense, and the gravity will increase, the heat will increase, and finally there'll be that explosion. They'll be off and running. That's a beautiful picture. This one was one just because I was so interested in astronomy. And here I am, a kid, and I'm reading about the planets, and they know nothing about Pluto, absolutely nothing. It was just a dot in the sky, that was all it was. And the Hubble telescope comes along, and it picks up kind of shadowy stuff, but even the Hubble couldn't do much about that. So in 2006, they launched something called New Horizons. And it was 35,000 miles an hour. I don't know if we've ever had a probe as fast as that. But even at that speed, it took it 9 years to get out there. So from 2006 to 2015, it was just cruising. Right? Can you imagine how far things are apart to be out there 35,000 miles an hour year after year? I always wonder about the poor people who are part of the program. And they're excited, they put this thing together and they monitor it every month, and then what happens if the thing doesn't work right? 9 years of your life or whatever are gone. But it worked. It was amazing. This thing went rocketing past Pluto at 35,000 miles an hour. Now here's the problem. If you take your camera and you're zipping along at 35 miles an hour, what do you get? You get a blur, right? So they had to take the camera and spin the camera in such a way that it would match the speed of the spacecraft so that they would get these clear images. I mean, there's a lot of work going on. It wasn't just shoot it out there and hope it takes a picture. They had to rotate the camera. They had a lot of close-up pictures as well, but it was one shot. It did not orbit Pluto. It just kept going. And they're going to try to rendezvous with some other object out there. But they found out it was just a bunch of methane and nitrogen gas that's formed kind of like glaciers. But they were really surprised. It was much more interesting than they thought it was. They thought it'd just be a big rock out there, but you can see it's got all sorts of odd designs here and there. But it's a real world, right? Pluto is a real place.
Is it still called a planet now, or is it?
I do. I never demoted it. Come on. We had 9 when I grew up. We still have 9 planets, yes? Yeah, they're calling it a minor planet, really. Yeah. Anybody know what we're looking at here?
Andromeda.
Yeah, Andromeda Galaxy. This is a galaxy. Even though it looks like it's a bunch of dust and stuff, it's so bright it's all stars. Somebody estimated maybe 1 trillion with a T, a trillion stars in that. 2.5 million light years away from us. This is the most distant thing you can see with the naked eye, and you can. On a dark night, you'll see it. It's a little tiny fuzzy patch up there. It's in the, strangely enough, it's in Andromeda. So it's our closest neighbor. It's a little bit bigger than our Milky Way galaxy, but probably kind of the same shape. And eventually, I guess it's going to come closer to us and maybe interact. And people always think, crash. It's like, no, these stars are pretty far apart. We'll probably just pass right through each other and not have a problem.
They do computer simulations of what will happen when they come together.
Yeah, they probably warp it a little bit,
It's
you
a
know.
mess.
Yeah, it will not be pretty. But I think we're okay because that's going to be millions of years. And then another one that you can actually see some of the colors if you get out and get yourself a telescope. You can actually see Jupiter with just binoculars. In fact, any binocular will pick up those 4 moons that go around it. And you'll see them if you go out every night, you'll see one time there'll be 3 on one side, 1 on another, and all 4, and then 2 are hidden and all because they're going around Jupiter. Just to give you an idea of size, they call this the Great Red Spot. These are just like hurricanes. They're just winds whipping around hundreds of miles an hour. The Earth would fit in that.
No.
Okay, so Jupiter has twice the mass of all of the other planets combined. So it's a monster. Somebody once said it was a star that failed to be a star, but I mean it's on its way, right? It's gassy again, a lot of hydrogen and helium and things like that. You can see one of the moons off to the left there. So these are all, if you ever see, go online sometime, just do a YouTube thing, just say Jupiter in motion, because they took pictures as it was moving and you could see these swirlings going on. It's just amazing. This is not a static place, right? The winds are just going all over the place.
Can I ask you a question? Do the planets have to always be circular? Do they be other shapes to them, or is it?
Yeah, they're all circular because they're so big. They pull gravity and pull
That's
things
how it
around.
works.
Yeah, there are lumpy things out there, but they're like asteroids and stuff like that.
No water anywhere, right? Only Earth?
Yeah, Mars probably has some. Yeah. Have you seen, I probably should have brought a picture of Mars. Have you seen pictures of Mars from some of the orbiters? It looks, you can definitely see channels as if water had been pouring down. Now where'd it go? Well, it doesn't have much of gravity like the Earth does. Probably a lot of it's gone, but a lot of people think there's stuff down in the surface, buried down. So that'd be kind of interesting.
Well, the poles freeze in
Yeah.
Mars.
But that's carbon dioxide. But,
It's carbon dioxide?
yeah.
Okay.
yeah. This is one of the moons that's going around Jupiter, and people thought, well, we'll take a picture of it, probably won't see much. Can you see what's going on at the top there? Volcanoes. Out in the depths of cold, cold, cold space, and people are going, how is that possible to have volcanoes out there? Well, it's called Io, or Io, I've heard it pronounced both ways. So this little moon goes around, it gets closer and a little bit further. It's not a perfect circle as it goes around Jupiter. So they said, think of a tennis ball. If you grab a tennis ball and you start squeezing it, it warms up, yes? So what's happening here, Jupiter is putting such an immense pressure on it as far as the pull of Jupiter, it's squeezing it as it gets closer, as it gets further, as it gets closer, as it gets further. So the inside is pretty liquidy, and it's shooting out something like 400 volcanoes are going off on Little Io. They're made of sulfur. It's not like volcanoes here. It's not magma, but so it looks like, somebody said, described it as a pizza. Looks a bit like a pizza. Pretty amazing. Now I know this is, look at it, what's going on here? All right, this is not a mistake or a pixel problem. Do you see the little tiny dot there? This picture has been called the pale blue dot. So Carl Sagan, when he was alive, he was involved in a lot of the space programs. And you may remember there was a Voyager 1 and a Voyager 2, and they went out and got the first really good pictures of Jupiter and Saturn and all. And then they've shot out of our solar system. Well, when, I think this is Voyager 1, 1990 or so, when it was like 4 billion miles away from the Earth, Sagan said, can we get the cameras to turn around, because we're not going to see much after this. They'd already done all of its stuff along the way. Could we get the camera to turn around and portray the Earth?
Oh,
So that's the Earth, that little tiny, tiny dot,
wow.
the pale blue dot. So it's like so long.
Wow.
And it's the first object now that is actually in interstellar space. Everything else is still within the solar system, but that's broken free of the sun, Voyager 1, and it's still returning information. Isn't that amazing? It's been out there, I don't know, 40, 50 years. It's still sending stuff back. All right, so here we go. The old view of the solar system, and I know we kind of look at people who are ancient astronomers and saying, how come you guys couldn't figure this out? Well, this actually makes a lot of sense. If you stand there in the earth and you look up, you see things going overhead, right? You don't see you moving, you see everything else moving. So they saw the moon, it was a lot bigger than anything else, so it's probably closer. And then Mercury, they knew what Mercury was. By the way, a lot of people have never seen Mercury. It's not that hard to see, it's just that it's pretty close to the sun. You have to catch it right at sunset or right at sunrise. But most people go through their whole life and they don't see it. They see Venus. Venus is called the evening star or the morning star. It's beautiful. In fact, the other day I took a picture. It was pretty close to the moon. I don't know if anybody, did you see that?
Yeah.
In the morning? Venus can get so bright that there have been a lot of people that thought it was a UFO. And they've had jets chasing it and they haven't caught it. You know? Hello? Venus, and then the sun. I'm not sure why they put the sun out that far, but they had the sun, and they had Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. That was it. That was it for the planets. They didn't know Uranus, Neptune. They certainly didn't know Pluto. And then the stars, they thought were part of like a kind of a crystalline sphere out there where they're all kind of like, you know, you painted them on there and they were going around as well. So that was a really popular view for a long, long time. That makes sense when you look up and you see all of that stuff. But there were problems with that. Mars and Jupiter and Saturn would be going along, people would trace their path, and then they'd slow down and they'd go backward and then go forward again. And they'd say, well, how's that possible? If they're just going around us, what's with this? It's called retrograde, right? It's moving backward and then it'd go forward, make a loop in the sky. So pretty soon you had people trying to draw epicycles on top of cycles, and they made it more and more complicated. And finally, a guy came along. Any idea who we're talking about here? Copernicus. Yeah, I admire his hair. I mean, I'm kind of jealous of the guy's hair. So he comes along, he says, there's got to be a simpler way to do this. You know, we've made it so complicated with all these cycles and things with stuff going around. So he's the one, of course, that came up with the idea of a sun-centered, heliocentric solar system. Everything, sun's in the center, and all of us go around the sun. But I just thought that was interesting because it's not that obvious to me. For this guy to sit down and think about it and to say, let's try something a little simpler here, and yeah, it worked out fine. So here comes the part that I wanted to focus on. So you've got some people who are atheists or agnostic, and they don't want us to feel that God cares about us because they don't think there's a God. Well, one thing they can do is demote the earth. Right, because we would say God created us, He created the world, he made it just right for us, He loves us, He cares. And for a lot of these people, they're saying, A, no God, B, we're all an accident. Now, I'll show you, I'll give you a couple of examples here. It's kind of depressing to read these things. Do you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is? Yeah. He's kind of taken over for Carl Sagan. And he ran the new series called Cosmos. There's an original Cosmos, that was Sagan. That was just kind of semi-atheistic. Neil deGrasse Tyson is just a full-blown atheist. I mean, he's just really hostile to Christianity. So here's what he said. Man is cosmically insignificant. Right? No big deal. And of course, Sagan, human beings are inconsequential, a thin film of life on an obscure and solitary lump of rock and metal. Doesn't that make you feel good? Yeah. And then, everybody's favorite, Stephen Hawking. This gets worse and worse. The human race for him is a chemical scum on a moderate-sized planet orbiting around a very average star in the outer suburb of one among 100 billion galaxies, so don't get too proud of yourself. Right? So this is what's coming out, or has been coming out over the last 20, 30 years, trying to demote the human race, trying to demote this idea that God would care about us. So is that the case? Is that really what's going on? Well, no. We're starting to see all sorts of things. This is a great time to be alive, by the way. We're going to cover these fairly quickly here. Just to start with the earth and kind of move out and see that these ideas of inconsequential, chemical scum, ho hum, who are you to think anything highly of yourself. These things are all pointing toward the existence of a creator, to point toward the earth being important, for the earth being valuable, for the earth being unique, not one of all these zillions of planets and all. So we'll get to that here in a second. So here's our home. Isn't that a nice shot? That's so pretty. Just hanging out there in space. That's beautiful. Some of you may recognize this picture. Does that look familiar? That's Apollo 8, the first people to leave the Earth and go around. That was a really dangerous mission, by the way. They hadn't ever done anything like that, and they were trying to beat the Russians, you know, and the space race was on. And these three guys were crazy enough to get in that little tin can. They shot them out there, not in Earth orbit, right? You can't do anything once you get out there far enough. They loop around the moon and come back, and they took a picture, one of the pictures here. It's too bad Jim Lovell just passed away. He was one of the three guys that was in Apollo 8. I love the career of Jim Lovell. What an amazing guy. He was part of the Apollo 13 that said, Houston, we've got a problem. That's a good movie, by the way. I thought Apollo 13 was really good. So that's Jim Lovell. He didn't take this picture. Jim Andrews, another guy with him, took it, Bill Andrews. But that became famous. That picture was something that was almost iconic, you know, because it was the first time we'd really seen the Earth from another place. And look at the difference. Just gray, ashy, barren, with this beautiful blue and clouds and everything up in the sky there. If you remember the Apollo 8 people, when they went out in space, and they got around there and they took pictures of the moon up close with a camera as they were going by, and this is Christmas Eve. And do you remember what they read from? They read from Genesis. And they each took a passage. In the beginning, God created heavens and you're watching this. And Sharon and I were just, you know, amazed that they did that. And when they got back, of course, you had certain people going, nee, nee, nee. And they said they shouldn't have, that was too religious and all. So we wrote NASA and we said, right on. I'm glad they did that. And they sent us a picture, right, a postcard of that picture. Yeah. So what about this Earth? Well, here's the deal, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but in fact, let me just put some of these things up here. There are so many characteristics, and you know that. The life on Earth has to be according to having these things exactly right. You know, we're Cinderella, or not Cinderella, Goldilocks, thank you. We're in the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold. Venus is closer, Mercury is closest. They're terrible. It gets too cold further out. Mars gets a couple hundred degrees below zero. So we're exactly right. You have to have an axis tilted. Why?
Seasons.
We don't spin straight up, right? We're tilted 23 and a half.
Makes it seasons.
Yeah, you get seasons, and so it's perfect for us. We've got to rotate at a certain speed. Any slower, any faster, it ruins tides and things like that. You have to have a magnetic field to protect us from all the harmful rays coming in from the sun. It has to reflect a certain amount of heat. You don't want all the heat coming in, so it has a certain reflectivity that's good. So I wanted to share with you where I'm getting some of this. Okay. I'll give you the location to go to online, but a man named Hugh Ross, who's a Christian astrophysicist, has an organization called Reasons to Believe. If you go to Reasons to Believe /fine tuning, you'll find all sorts of information, way more than I've got up here. He's got dozens and dozens and dozens of parameters, things that have to be exactly right, or you don't get life. And they're finding more and more. It's not they're finding fewer and fewer. They keep adding to this. At one time, he had like 20 or 30 things like this that have to be exactly right. Now it's pages and pages. So it's bigger and bigger. And you can take a look yourself if you want to. We're over 300 at this point. Started off with a couple dozen. So I want you to imagine something here. Any science fiction fans? We're going to do a science. Okay, same people that like astronomy. So we're going to do a real quick science fiction story here. So you're out in your spacecraft and you land and you look out and you go, wow, this is a wild place. I'm going to go exploring it, right? So you got your suit on, you start walking around and you come across kind of a strange looking place. It kind of looks like a building of some kind. So you walk up to it and you go inside and you go, oh my word, there's a refrigerator there. And inside the refrigerator are the things you like to drink, the kinds of foods, you know, frozen pizzas or whatever are in there. For me, it's Cheerios. I told you I was going to work Cheerios into that. So there are Cheerios in there. I go, great, I'm set. I wonder if there's anything to listen to. Yeah, they got the birds. Okay, that's me in the 1960s, right? So the birds. They got Lord of the Rings. Hey, these are all my favorite things, right? So what's my conclusion as this astronaut? Somebody knew I was coming, right? Because it was all particularly set up for me to survive, and not just survive, but to flourish. Somebody knew that astronaut was coming. So that's what we're finding on this Earth, right? The Earth seems to be prepared. And I'm going to share some quotations in a few minutes. It's not just me, right? Some very intelligent people have said, this looks prepared, this looks planned. Let's move out a little bit. So we got a moon around the Earth. And a lot of people say, well, so what? You know, a lot of moons out there. I shared some of the ones that go around Jupiter. Saturn's got a bunch. Yeah, but if you want to have life, you only want to have one moon, because if you have more than one moon, it really makes the hash out of tides and things like that. It's the largest moon in comparison to the planet that it goes around. Okay, so that's important. Again, it stabilizes the Earth. It's got to be the right distance from the Earth. The tidal influences have to be exactly right. And there are a lot more factors. Again, you'll see them on that sheet, because they talk about the moon as well. Let's move out one more step. So now we got the solar system. Now this bothers me because they don't put Pluto on there, but okay. Anyway, that's not to scale. I'm going to show you one to scale here in just a minute. So you got Mercury, you got Venus, Earth, Mars. Mars is pretty small. Then you got the big guys, right? Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. There it is to scale. That's the sun. I mean, you can't even begin to get you can just barely tell it's an arc. You know, it's so big that it almost looks like a straight line. It's a slight curve there. And so there we are, third over, pretty small, huh? You could fit 1 million Earths into the sun. Maybe that'll give you an idea of the size. They have Pluto. It's there. Yeah. So yay! All right. I guess, I don't know if it's just me, but I like to figure out the scale of things. You know, I mean, how big are we talking about this universe or the solar system? So, what if you're going in a jet? Pretty typical speed for a cross-country trip, right? 600 miles an hour. So it takes you, what, like 5 hours to go across the U.S., something like that? Okay, the moon would be 18 days at that speed. Of course, the astronauts went faster, which is good. How long do you think it'd take you to get to the sun?
Years.
Years?
Decades.
20 years. 20 years. I mean, just look at the difference, right? 18 days compared to 20 years. And we make such a big deal. Hey, we've gone to the moon. Oh, really? That's nice. We're just playing in our backyard, right? We haven't really gotten out and seen much. Let's take it a little further. How about Jupiter? 80 years. Okay, so there's lifetime. Lifetime is 600 miles an hour, day after day, 24 hours a day. And then there's Pluto, of course.
Wow.
Yeah. So no wonder they had to get that thing up to 35,000 miles an hour to get out there, and that was still 9 years. Then if you want to go to the nearest star, yeah, you got a long haul, right? 5 million years at that speed. Of course, people will say, yeah, but we'll go at the speed of light. There are a lot of reasons why that's not going to work, but anyway, so that's the size of the solar system. How about a distance comparison? I think this is interesting. If you took a grapefruit and you said, this is the sun, labeled the sun, and you put it up in San Francisco, okay, how big would the Earth be? And how far away do you suppose?
Grain of sand.
What's that?
I think the Earth would be the size of a grain of sand.
Yeah, it's about, they said a grain, I'll put it up here, grain of sugar about 50 feet away.
Oh.
Okay, so we could do that in this room. You know, you could put the sun there, and I guess you go off about 50 feet. All right, well that's okay. I mean, I can picture that. On that scale, right? So we're back to that grapefruit up in San Francisco. How far do we have to go? We went, what, 50 feet for the Earth. How far do we go till we get to the nearest star, not just any?
50,000 miles.
No, we're not that bad off, but you put another grapefruit in New York City. But then they give you kind of a wild idea. I mean, we can't get, even as far as the sun. We don't want to go that way, but I'm just saying that distance. And you'd have to go cross country to pick up that other nearest star. Okay, so here's the sun. Is this just a typical star? I mean, the universe is full of stars. No, the more they've been studying the sun, the more perfect the sun is for life here. It's just the right size. It's the right color. You have all sorts of colors. Have you ever noticed or seen any pictures of some of the stars? They're different colors. It's the right age. You get the right kind of wind, solar wind coming off of it, the distance again from the Earth, and there are a lot more factors. It's in that list if you want to take a look at that. And then we've got a big brother that's helping us out there, Jupiter. Why? I don't know if you remember, there was a comet called Shoemaker-Levy in the 90s, I think, and it was coming into the solar system, and it broke into pieces. And if it hit the Earth, piece after piece, it probably would have just destroyed the Earth. It hit Jupiter instead. It's the first time any astronomer had a chance to actually watch what happens when a planet gets whacked by a comet coming in. Well, it hit on the backside, so they couldn't see it until Jupiter rotated around, and it created a major hole in the atmosphere there. So Jupiter sweeps up a lot of stuff that would come our way. That's why I call it the Big Brother, right? It protects us, as well as the other planets. And then if you ever walk through the mall trying to figure out where you are here. Right, so but there again, it's like, really, could you be any place in the galaxy? No. Why is this a bad idea? Well, it won't be the heat. Radiation, black holes. There'll be so many stars there, they're going to disrupt any kind of orbit that, you're not going to have a simple orbit going on there. This is not so good either. You don't want to be on the outside because there are other things going past that may disturb your orbit and take you off on some adventure that you don't want to go on. I thought maybe since we're talking about the galaxies now, we're kind of moving out. Can we talk about the distance, right? So this is not time. This is what they call a distance measurement, light years. I already mentioned light years, but I thought maybe we could talk about that briefly. So a light year is how far light can travel in 1 year, right? It is a light year. Click, click, how far did we go? Well, it goes 186,000 miles a second, so that's like, 7 times around the Earth in 1 second. That's pretty fast. Okay, so the sun is 8 light minutes away. So if the sun blinks out, we will be fine for 8 minutes. After that, we're on our own, right? We got, to Mars is average, because Mars is kind of a goofy orbit. It gets pretty close and it gets further out, but about 10 light minutes. So I always think about these guys that are shooting these rovers that they want to land on Mars, and they spend all these years investing their time and effort and energy, and then they call it like, 10 minutes of horror, because the thing is coming down through the Martian atmosphere, and all sorts of things have to work exactly right, and they don't know for 10 minutes. And so they're just, on pins and needles until they get the signal, it's landed. Whew. Okay. Have you seen some of the things they've done to land those rovers? One, they did that big inflated balloon thing, and it went ga-dong, 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 and it survived that. I mean, talk about having it insulated well enough. Then they did the one that came down, and it retracted and dropped the rover, and then it went flying off someplace else. And they had cameras on that, so you can watch the whole thing happen, real action. Just amazing things. Pluto is 5 light hours. Now you're talking hours. So again, they didn't know if they really captured it when that spacecraft went past Pluto. It took them 5 hours to get the images to come back. Voyager 1, about 23 light hours now away. Still sending some signals back, but it takes almost a full day. Nearest star is 4 light years. So we're way beyond light hours, light years. And that's the close one, right? 4 light years. Milky Way is like 100,000 light years, just to give you an idea of the size. So what about the Milky Way? Well, our location is great. It's the right size, it's the right kind of galaxy, it's got the right amount of dust, and on and on. Good spot for the solar system. So all these factors that make it perfect for us to be here. Now let's move out one more step. The universe itself. This is a pretty famous picture. The Hubble Space Telescope, one time they said, hey, let's try something different. We've been looking at stars and galaxies and things like that. Let's aim it toward what looks like an empty spot in space and just see what we pick up. So let's just keep the camera going for quite a while, let all that light absorb onto the camera, and this is what they got. And you think, oh, that's neat, a lot of stars. Those are not stars, those are all galaxies. So those are all Milky Ways, those are all Andromeda galaxies, right? And that's in an empty part of the sky. That was pretty amazing. Well, why is the universe the way it is? I remember the book Contact. Have you ever read Contact, Carl Sagan's book? So he's got one of the characters saying, well, the universe seems awfully big just for life here. Why would God make something so big? Well, it really does have to be the right size, right age. It has to expand the right way. You got to have the right distances, all sorts of things. And I said, and many more factors. Go back, take a look at that fine-tuning thing from Hugh Ross. These things have to all be exactly right for the entire universe. So we've gone Earth, we've gone solar system, we've gone beyond that, our Milky Way galaxy, even the universe has to be a certain way. So let's move to the laws of physics themselves. So we won't talk as much about the planets and things like that, but just what about the things that have to be exactly right, like gravity and the electrons that go around the atoms and things like that. So I took this from a picture of like a submarine, and if you don't get the dials exactly right, you're going to have a bad day on that submarine, right? So the laws of physics are perfectly balanced. This just knocks out physicists. They say, why is this? So things like nuclear force, the gravity, electromagnetic, on and on and on. Many more. In fact, you've heard that more than once tonight. These things have to be set. And so if you can imagine a whole wall full of gauges, just hundreds of gauges, and each one has to be set precisely. Not one, but dozens of these things have to be set just right. Let's just pick one example. The universe is expanding, right? We've talked about the Big Bang, and the universe is continuing to expand. But it's not like an explosion. It's not like a hand grenade going off where it's just chaotic. It's expanding carefully at a particular rate. If it expanded any more slowly, you wouldn't get stars and galaxies and things like that. If it expanded too quickly, you wouldn't get stars and galaxies. So it's got to be exactly right to form us, to have us be here. Somebody said, well, how specific is this have to be, this gravity? So somebody said, imagine that you took a long tape measure across the entire universe and represented all those possible places you could have gravity, the amount of gravity. Apparently, if you move that line 1 inch for the whole solar system, you wouldn't get life. So does that make sense? A tape measure across the entire universe, not just across the Earth, the entire universe. And you have any of those numbers on there could be what gravity would be, and move it 1 inch and you don't get the right life here. Somebody says if we change gravity by a tiny fraction of percent, the universe is so different we don't get stars, galaxies, and so on. So along comes a guy, we got to go back here for a couple minutes. So along comes a guy named Frank Drake back in the 50s. And he said, I wonder if we could figure out how many different planets are out there with life on them. And he was very optimistic. They were so optimistic because they said, our planet's nothing, the sun's nothing, it's just average. And if it's average, we've got skies full of all these things, there's got to be life everywhere. So he came up, and there'll be a test on this. He came up, there it is, there's his equation. No, it's no big deal, but what he did is he tried to work it out mathematically how many planets would likely have life. That's just a guess. But it was very optimistic, and his number, which is over here, the N, number of technologically advanced civilizations, he got dozens as a result by doing these numbers. So we're not going to worry about the numbers, but he came up with dozens. So he was very happy about that. Carl Sagan worked with him, and Sagan was very optimistic. Oh, life's everywhere. Oh, really? SETI. You know about SETI, the radio telescopes, not optical, but radio. So they're listening, right? Any technologically advanced society is going to give off some kind of signatures. That's how they discovered it on Contact, in the book Contact. It was giving off pi, right, and all sorts of messages in there. So they've had these things working since the 60s. And they're really optimistic, right? They said, I bet we just point it anywhere. We're going to have a lot of chatter out there coming from all these galaxies because life is so common. Well, recently Penn State looked at not 100,000 stars, they looked at 100,000 galaxies, and they got zip, zero, nada, not a single society was saying hello. There's a book out you might find interesting. It's called Rare Earth by two people that are not Christians, but look at their title. It's a fairly recent book. It's probably 15 years old now, but they were finding those things that we were talking about, some of those factors, and over they kept saying, this is amazing. It's only the Earth, right? It's pretty limited. And then there's a guy who, again, he's not a Christian, Paul Davies. He's an astrophysicist at Arizona State, I think it is. So he put out a recent book called The Eerie Silence. Do you hear the title? The Eerie Silence, because they were expecting to hear hello, and they're not hearing hello. So he wrote a book, and he shocked a lot of people. Here's what it said: we're probably the only intelligent beings in the universe, not just local, right? Anywhere. And so a lot of people, their eyes popped open. I saw it was a book review of this in an astronomy magazine, and I was just reading, and I went, what? Because they quoted this, right? We may be it. Scientific American, again, not exactly a Christian journal. Exoplanet. Exoplanet means outside of our own solar system. Exoplanet census suggests Earth is special after all. Oh, welcome to our world. Right? Yeah.
Jerry, there is one time when they call it the wow statement, or the wow signal that they got in 1977. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
It might point towards something out there. That's the only thing they ever got out of that big telescope there.
Yeah. Pretty much a dud. Well, then the people are going to say, yeah, wait a minute though. There's an alternative that's possible, right? So people are trying to grasp at straws because it points more and more to the uniqueness of the Earth. So then they're going, well, there's got to be a way around that. Have you heard about the multiverse?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are they saying when they say multiverse?
There's a whole load of universes.
Yeah, there's some kind of something or other out there that's spitting out universes. And each one is slightly, I mentioned those dials. Well, what if you had universes and each one had different dials? If you had billions of these universes, maybe one would be like ours, right? And so it'd be good for life. But it won't be for some of these other universes, right? So if you have enough universes, this is a possibility. But I put no. Why? Can you think of some possible problems with this multiverse idea?
You still need a creator.
What's that?
You still need a creator to create the thing that's fit.
Yeah, what's spitting them out, right? Steve?
Well, that's what I was going to say is, where did it all get started?
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't really help you much. Here's the main catch, though. You can never see it or prove it or contact it or anything because it's a separate universe. So we're not talking about anything physical now. We're in metaphysics, right? This is just a thought game to try to get around the idea that the Earth is special, right? So you'll never be able to prove. How could you prove there's another universe out there? You can't launch something. Whatever you launch is in your universe. So there's no contact, nothing can be made. So I just think that's actually a lot of desperation. The universe still needs a cause, we talked about. There's no evidence. You can't discover it. And then you got to fine-tune that machine, don't you, to produce, because each one would have to turn the dial slightly. Does that make sense? So the first universe, dial's on 5. Next time it's got to turn it. If you get 5 again, you get the same universe. So you got to turn those dials all the time. What's doing that? Yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So is the Earth rare? Yeah, here's a quote from that book, Rare Earth. If some godlike being could be given the opportunity to plan a sequence of events with the purpose of duplicating the Earth, it's unlikely the Earth could ever truly be duplicated. It's a one-shot deal, right? We We certainly got lucky. Hugh Ross, the person that you can look at his website, he says there's something like 300 parameters that have to be exactly right for life to be here. And people say, yeah, but there's so many planets. I mean, this is just kind of a rough estimate, but if you imagine 100 billion trillion, that's a 1 with 23 zeros, right? So there's that many planets out there. Seems like the odds are going to be you're going to have life everywhere. Yeah, but you got to have those 322 parameters. The probability of all those parameters being found in one planet is 10 to the 282nd. So that's 1 with not 23 zeros, 200 plus zeros. Right? So what are those odds? Yeah, you wouldn't go to Las Vegas with those odds, right? Okay, so I'll keep this pretty short, but I just want to make you understand that it's not me trying to convince you up here. I'm just hearing this out there, and people are being reported who are in the know, who are physicists, who are astronomers, and they're coming to the same conclusion. Freeman Dyson, you heard of him, pretty famous individual. The more I examine the universe and study, he says, the more evidence I find the universe in some sense must have known we were coming. Fred Hoyle, not a Christian. He didn't even like the Big Bang idea. He's the one that coined the name because he was trying to put it down. Big Bang. And it caught on, so probably irritated him. No. He said a super intellect has monkeyed with physics. He didn't want to call it God, of course. You notice that. It's just a super intellect. He leaves it kind of vague. Paul Davies, here he is again, the astrophysicist. The laws of physics seem themselves to be the product of exceedingly ingenious design. I can't believe our existence, he says, is a mere quirk of fate. We are meant to be here. Well, why doesn't he take the next step and find out who is it that made it right for us, right? He hasn't wanted to go that direction, probably because he'd have to bend the knee. I think that's what it often comes down to. George Greenstein, astronomer, as we survey all the evidence, the thought insistently arises that some supernatural agency, and then he capitalizes it. Agency must be involved. Again, probably having a hard time using the G word, but he's getting close. He's going to at least capitalize that. Tony Rothman, theoretical physicist, he says, you know, when you see the beauty and the order of the universe and all these coincidences of nature, he says it's tempting to take a leap of faith from science into religion. He said, I'm sure many physicists want to. I wish they'd admit it. Here's Kistiakowsky. She's an MIT professor. The exquisite order displayed by a scientific understanding of the physical world calls for the divine. Yes, it does. I'm running out of time, so... Oh, this is one of my favorite quotes, the bottom one here. Mathematical physics is his area. He says, if we need an atheist for a debate, I go to the philosophy department. The physics department isn't much use. Why? Because they're buying into all of this, saying there's got to be something out there bigger than that. So go to the philosophy department if you want to find an atheist. But you know what's interesting? I hope you thought this was cool stuff, but the best is yet to come, isn't it? From a Christian perspective. Romans 8 says the creation is waiting and it's going to be liberated. There's going to be a new creation out there. Much prettier, much better than what we've been looking at tonight. 2 Peter says the heavens will disappear with a roar, but in keeping with his promise, we're looking forward to a new heaven and a new earth, the home of righteousness. Isn't that great? Revelation says, I saw a new heaven, new earth, no more death or mourning or crying or pain. The old order will have passed away. This is what we all have to look forward to.
Amen.
Yeah, that's so nice. No eye has seen, this is Paul talking, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. So let me share with you, I'll send you a list of some good things, but some of you may remember that Doc Strauss was the pastor here years back. One of his sons, this is Mike Strauss, has spoken to the church via Zoom, which is really neat, a couple years back. And so he wrote a book called The Creator Revealed. And he covers some of the things that we've talked about tonight, except obviously in more depth. And it's a short book, not all that difficult. He's a sharp guy. He spends time over at CERN, the collider in Europe, and he's a sharp guy.